Okay. So just once again, I'll repeat that. Yitzchak ben Avraham says, following that, it's Avraham Holidas Yitzchak, which seems to be repetitious. Now we know that Yitzchak Avinu is the midah of Gevura, the midah of Din. Din means judgment. Gevura is often translated as strength, but really more accurately, Gevura means the power of restraint. Ezehu Gibor HaKovesh Es Yitzhar. Who is a Gibor? The one who conquers, who prevails over his Yetzer Hara. So it's that kind of strength. The ability to create proper boundaries in life is Gevura. Definition, all those things have to do with Gevura. And of course, the fundamental ability to restrain oneself when it's necessary. All that is Gevura. Now, Gevura is also the midah of Din. We translate Din in English as judgment, and that has a certain strictness about it, judgment. We did something, this is the consequence of what we did. That's the Din, that's the law. We have that in Yiddishkeit. There's another context of the word Din, which is more like discipline. A person has to be disciplined. We would call that word tochacha. To be mochiach somebody is to give a person discipline, rebuke, lay out for another person what's right and what's wrong, and these are the consequences of what is wrong. Or when it comes to, let's say, a parent and a child, you might have to discipline your child in a more strict way, what we would call a punishment. So what's the idea there? This is based on the Ramchal and the Derech Hashem, and it's also based on other Sforim as well. That in Yiddishkeit, anytime you have Din, anytime you have a reckoning, it's all flowing from Ahava, it's all flowing from love. Hashem created the Jewish people, He created us out of love. He created the world out of love. And He's trying to, I want to say that, we're talking about God. He is creating out of love. Sometimes the midah of love itself, that we want the best for somebody, requires us to be firm. Ava requires Din. We don't believe in Yiddishkeit in punishment for its own sake, just to make somebody feel bad or experience something harsh. There's no concept like that in Yiddishkeit. Anytime there's Din, it's always in the ultimate service of Ahava, in the service of love. And the classic pasuk which teaches us that is the pasuk in the Torah, Kasher yigaser ish es beno, kein Hashem Elokecha miyasreka. Just as a person disciplines their child, so Hashem disciplines you. How does a parent discipline a child? A good parent, out of love. The discipline is there out of love. It's not there for its own sake. So too, whenever Hashem has to do something which is more harsh for the Jewish people, it's coming out of the place of love. Now let's take a look at the pasuk. Vela Toldos Yitzchak ben Avram. These are the generations, the happenings of Yitzchak, the son of Avram. That identifies who we're talking about. So we're identifying the second of the three Avos, Yitzchak ben Avram. So let's know a little something about this person. First thing we want to know is that this midah of Din, this Din person, Yitzchak Avinu, where does he come from? He comes from the midah of chesed, from the midah of love and kindness. Abraham, whose chesed, holid es Yitzchak. It's not an identifier of Yitzchak based on who he is, we already know who he is. He's Yitzchak ben Avram. It's telling us something about the midah of Yitzchak, the midah of Din in the world, that midah, in order for it to be authentic and within the boundaries of Kedusha, it has to come from love. Avraham holid es Yitzchak. Avraham brought into this world loving kindness, and his son is produced by that same loving kindness. So people say, no, there's no copycats amongst the Avos. Abraham was his midah, Yitzchak was his midah, Yaakov was his midah. The same thing with the imahos. They all represent something different. They're not trying to imitate each other. They're all bringing a certain midah within the confines of Avodas Hashem. But this very midah of Yitzchak that came into the world, the midah of Din, it came in through love. Avraham holid es Yitzchak. Whenever we're thinking about that midah in our own life, the midah of Din, and it plays an important role in everybody's life, we always have to know and ask ourselves, where is it coming from? If our Din is too harsh, we have to question ourselves that perhaps it's not coming from the right place. Maybe it's coming from anger, from frustration. We have to ask that question to ourselves if we see the Din is too harsh. Most likely, the source of it is off center. When Din is guided by Chesed and Ava, it's a whole different experience. I want to go back to my youth for a moment. Just a year or two ago, actually about 45, 55 years ago. So I was in school. I had a really very strict teacher, very strict, too strict. This teacher meant very well, but they were very, very strict. And I remember those days and that year, and it was a hard year. I was, I think, 11 years old in 6th grade, and I had a lot of trouble that year because the teacher had a lot of Din and did not really know how to show Chesed. So that year stands out in my mind in my many school years. I survived. Here I am, doing okay, Baruch Hashem. Then a couple years later in high school, I had a very strict Rabbi in 12th grade. Very strict, but you know what? We all knew he was coming from a place of love. In the classroom with that Rabbi, you didn't say a word. You couldn't. He had that kind of Din presence. You listened, you spoke when spoken to, and we learned a lot. But that Din was governed by love. We all knew he cared about us. And it tempered the strictness of that teacher. It tempered it. We understood where it was coming from. So those two different experiences in my lifetime, my early years in school, one was Din without too much chesed. The other one was Din tempered by chesed and love. Avraham holid es Yitzchak. Our Yitzchak, our Din, has to come from a place of love. B'ezras Hashem, may we be zocha. Okay, we're going to start with L'chadodi tonight, and tonight is going to be a vocalist without the instrument, so we'll go with that. Everybody is welcome to sing at home, but don't unmute when you sing because it doesn't work on Zoom. L'chadodi likras kaladi rabbi didi p'nei Shabbos nikavela. Ligras kala bye p'nei Shabbos nikavela Aisham v'zachar v'dibur echad Ishmiyanu Elamiyu Kadamiyah. Didiram bye bye. Didiram bye bye bye. Hashem Kadishamaya. The shame. Lucifer Velisila. I Lechadaidi. Likaras Kala. Enne Shabbos Nekabla. Didiram bye bye bye. Didiram. Didiram bye bye. Didiram bye bye. Holy Bishalom Ateres Bala. Gabarina Ubitsalaya. Didiram bye bye. Didiram bye bye. Tochemune. Absegula Boichala Boichala Boichala. Shabbos Magisa. Lechadaidi, Likaras Kala, Enne Shabbos Nekabla, Didiram Babam Didiram, Didiram Babada, Didiram Badidam, Didiram Babam Bam, Didiram Bam Bam, Didiram Bam, Didiram Babiba. Didiram bam, didiram bam bam, didiram bam bam, didiram bam 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 bam, didiram bam, didiram bam bam bam, didiram bam, didiram bam bam. Aham lechadaidi, likaras kala. Enne Shabbos Nekabla. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Wanted to talk a little bit about this very mysterious bracha, which Yaakov Avinu receives in this week's Parsha. The center of this Parsha, the brachos, Yitzchak Avinu has in mind to give a bracha to Esav. Some say he knew who Esav really was. Some say he didn't know. It's a big topic of discussion. But be that as it may, Yaakov had to, in a very crafty way, get that bracha. And he did, through the guidance of a very great woman, Rivka Imenu, and through her guarantee to him. And Yaakov went forth, disguised himself, received the bracha. Now I would like to just take a step back for a moment, and instead of going through the ins and outs and how and why, I'm just going to accept the fact that Yaakov had to receive the brachos in a hidden way. Because that's the hashgacha. The hashgacha of the situation, the way Hashem presided over it, and the outcome is that Yitzchak received the brachos while he was looking like Esav. What is the meaning of that, and why was that necessary from a hashgacha point of view? There is a concept in Avodas Hashem that a person should not try to draw too much attention to themselves in their Avodas Hashem, in their service of God. We try and be under the radar. We don't attempt to be in any way ostentatious or advertising our personal relationship with Hashem. That is a matter of pnimius, the inner person, the inner relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We have our communal life, we daven together, we spend time together, we learn together. We look pretty Jewish, I look pretty Jewish usually. And that's okay, because that's not advertising, that's who we are. Was one time on an airplane, and remember those days when we went on airplanes? So a lady said to me as we were getting off the plane, "Excuse me, would you mind telling me what religion you are?" I said, sure. I said, I'm Jewish. She said, oh, you're really Jewish. So I guess I look a little Jewish. I'll tell the other story just because it goes along with this story. It's not related, but it's such a nice story. So we were on a plane, our family going on one of our trips. This is quite a few years ago. We were saying Tefillas Haderech. And when we finished saying Tefillas Haderech, there was a woman sitting across the aisle. And she said in a very polite way, excuse me, would you mind telling me what you were just doing? So I said, yeah, we were saying a prayer. So she said, oh, what kind of prayer were you saying? And we said, we were praying to God that we should have a safe trip. So she said, thank you. It's nice to be a Jew. It's nice to be a Jew. And it's nice to have such a polite person who appreciates that sitting across the aisle. Okay, back to our Parsha. So we have this special relationship with Hashem, this inner relationship with Hashem. It's not meant to be showy. My Rabbi Tursky used to say, we don't wear our Yiddishkeit on our sleeve. It's meant to be deeply internal. So what happens when a very big bracha, a really big bracha, is about to come down from heaven, from Shemayim? How does that bracha come down and remain invulnerable to the powers of Tuma, of Ra, that try and attach themselves to anything holy that happens in the world? When something holy is occurring in the world, we know that impure forces, powers of evil in the world, they try and prevent it from happening. That's what they do. They set up a barrier. So what we do when we know we're involved with something which is very great and holy, is we try and hide it. The Kodesh HaKadoshim, the Holy of Holies in the Beis HaMikdash, was the most hidden private place for the Jewish people. The Kohen Gadol went in there one time a year on Yom Kippur. So for us, the holiest place is not brought out into the public and say, here we are, this is the holiest place, everybody come take a look. On the contrary, it's the most private place, is the Holy of Holies. So when that big bracha comes down in the world, it needs to be hidden. So it seems to me, and I heard something like this once from Rabbi Twersky Zatzal, that when that bracha came into the world, it could not appear like it was going to Yaakov, because that would make that bracha vulnerable to the kochos hatuma, the impure forces in the world. It needed to look like it was going to Esav. And then the Satan will take a look at it and say, oh good, that's just what we want. So Yaakov has to look like Esav when he gets that bracha, in order for that bracha to remain under wraps, under the radar, and invulnerable to the powers of Ra in the world. So we can go through all the various things which are interesting and challenging. What did Yitzchak know? What did he not know? Why did Yaakov need to be so crafty to get the brachos? And these are all very important things to work through in the Meforshim. But when we step back from that, we see what happened and how the bracha came down. There's a lesson in this. It needs to come down in a very hidden way. And when that happened, it was protected. It looked like it went over there to the Sitra Achra, but it went over here to the side of Tov. A good lesson for us in our avodas Hashem. There are certain things we can't avoid doing in public, it's just the nature of life. But other things that are private and personal, in that very deep place of our own Kodesh HaKadoshim, our own inner sanctum, our Holy of Holies, that should be private and personal between us and God. It's not meant to be out in the public. And when we see something special like that is going on in our life, and we're able to keep it private, it's a very great thing. That's like going into the Kodesh HaKadoshim on Yom Kippur. Now, it's not always possible, and there's certainly something to be said for sharing and helping people participate in a larger scale, of course. It's really important in life. But I hope that what I'm saying is coming across, that we need to make sure that that personal, private place between us and God is there inside each and every one of us, and that keeps it protected. Okay, we will conclude with the Shamru. And tonight we'll do Shamru from the Niggunim of Reb Shlomo Carlebach. The Shamru b'nei Yisrael es ha-Shabbos Elasos es ha-Shabbos L'darai samberis Olam V'heini Uvein b'nei Yisrael Ha'isili Olam Ki sheishes yamim Asa Hashem Hashamayim v'yesaret uvayim hashvi Shabbos v'yi nafash Tirai-rai-rai-rai-ram Tirai-rai-rai-ram Tirai-rai-ram Tirai-rai-rai-ram. Nice to see everybody. If you would please unmute, we can say a Gittin Erev Shabbos and a Gittin Shabbos. Great to see everybody.
Thank you.
Shabbos. Thank you.
Good
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank
Good
you.
Shabbos.
Thank you.
Great to see
Hey,
everybody.
Elisheva.
Nice to see you.
Good Rabbi.
Go too. Have a wonderful night, everybody. And again, Shabbos to you,
Shabbos.
the one and all. All the best.
Shabbos. Thank
Everybody.
you, Rabbi.
Thanks. Go too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Have a good night. Bye-bye. Shabbos.
Good Shabbos.
Bye-bye.